Alrighty, so I am going to introduce our guest for today. You might have heard of him. He was on Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, okay, good. So his name is Steve Blum, so I want everyone to give a big round of applause to our wonderful guest, Steve Blum.
Very cool, thanks. Hi guys. Sorry, I had to find out what the charity auction was for because I like to donate to those things. And it's for the Humane Society. That's a good thing. We love animals, right? Except mine. Well, thank y'all for having me here. It is wonderful to be here. I've always wanted to come to this part of the country, and I'm really excited to go see Dollywood tomorrow. I heard it's really fun. And I'm about to eat all of your pulled pork, so sorry there won't be any left when I'm done. Anybody wander in here and have no idea who I am? It's okay, you can be honest. Okay, she told me I have to wear pants up here, I don't know why. Okay, so for those of you who have no idea who I am, my name is Steve Blum, I'm a voice actor, I've been doing this for about 30 years. I know that this is an anime-centric con, but I know you guys cover other things too. I started in anime. My very first job was a show called The Guyver back in the day, and I just did it for fun for many years while I was trying to be a musician, and I wasn't very good at that, so I'm really glad that voiceover worked out. But I started in anime, and the thing that really kind of kicked off this thing as a career was Cowboy Bebop. I'm so excited this weekend that we have a few members of the original cast of Cowboy Bebop. Tomorrow we're going to do a Bebop panel, so save all your really hard-hitting questions for that panel. Or you can ask whatever you want here too, it doesn't matter. But I'm personally excited because we all recorded that show individually. We never get to work together. And we have to come to places like this all the way on the other side of the country so we can actually see each other. So we have as much fun going to these things as you guys do, and we really appreciate that you guys support all of the work that we've done throughout the years. So I'm just going to open this up to you. I want to know what's on your minds. We've got a microphone right up here, so don't be shy. Come on up to the microphone and shoot your questions at me. Yay, our first brave victim. Thank you, sir. Uh-oh, can we get that microphone working?
Hello?
There we go.
Thank you. I have a Star Wars question. We're seeing recently a lot of like animated and live action shows being canon to the Star Wars franchise. I was wondering, what's it like being part of the canon of what is widely known as the greatest movie franchise of all time?
Oh man, I've been a Star Wars fan since 1977 when the first movie came out. And I just remember I was an apathetic teenager coming out of high school. Yes, I am that old. And I remember just sitting in the theater watching the Imperial destroyer come across the screen for the first time and hearing the THX sound, which we didn't have back then. We didn't have sound like that. You guys are so spoiled. And it changed my life. It changed everything. And I actually cared about something again. And so I've been a fan all these years of that franchise. And when I started working on Star Wars games, that was my entry point into the Star Wars universe, I geeked out every time I walked into that room. I play 1/3 of the Stormtroopers in most of the games. And I played a lot of creatures and Imperials and Rebels, everything. But eventually getting to create a character kind of from scratch that has been introduced as canon, like from Star Wars Rebels, especially based on a Ralph McQuarrie design. If you don't know, Zeb Orrelios from Star Wars Rebels was the character model for that, was the original character design for the Wookiee. And that's why they have the hairless Wookiee joke in there. So to get to do something like that from scratch went so far beyond my fanboy hopes and dreams that I had an inner squee every time I went into that room. And working with all of the other people on the show too, just being in the same room with Billy D. Williams was insane. And I know Mark Hamill personally now, and it's that kind of stuff. As crazy as you can imagine that would be, it is, and it still is to this day. And every time I work with Mark, and I work with him fairly often, I'll be sitting next to him in the booth. We'll be working on something. We did a lot of work together on a show called The Regular Show. And I sit next to him and I go, oh my God, I'm sitting next to Mark Hamill. And he's my friend. I still do that just because of that Star Wars fandom. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. And when you get to work with a company like Lucasfilm, they welcome you as part of the family. And they've brought us up to Skywalker Ranch a number of times. We've gotten to tour the Lucasfilm facility. I've met most of the people that worked on our show, and a lot of the people that worked on the original movies too. A lot of them are still there. So they love it as much as we do. And behind the scenes, that's why those shows are so good. Because behind the scenes, there's just as much nerddom as you can imagine. In fact, when we were recording Star Wars Rebels, they would set us for a 4-hour recording schedule usually for each episode. And sometimes the first full hour, hour and a half would be Dave Filoni walking into the room and going, okay guys, so this is how it all fits into the Star Wars arc, and this is how it applies to society as a whole. And he'd have all these amazing, grandiose ideas, but he wanted it to be as rich an experience for you guys as it was for him as a fan before he got involved in Lucasfilm. And to this day, it's still like that. I don't know if you guys have been watching Mandalorian, but I've been geeking out over that. I have nothing to do with Mandalorian, but I geek out on that thing too. It's crazy. I'm just as much of a Star Wars fan now as I ever was. So the short answer is it's awesome. It's so awesome to be part of that. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. And bash a bucket for me, will you? All right, who's next? Come on up. Come on up. It's a microphone here. It's okay. Don't be shy. We're all family here.
I got a loud voice, but yeah. I was just wondering if it's true and Netflix goes through with it, can we get you to push your way into the live-action Cowboy Bebop?
I've been trying to push my way into the Cowboy Bebop thing too.
Fans want it.
Let me just check. I sent John Cho a message this morning. I don't know if he responded. Let me just check really quick. He probably didn't because he's super busy. No, nothing yet. I've been stalking John Cho just because I want him to have a really good experience with this. And when he was announced, I was a fan of his anyway. I've worked on a few projects that he did, never at the same time. I've never met him in person. But I just wanted to let him know that I want him to enjoy this role. I kind of want to pass the torch and see what he does with it. I'm also really lazy and I don't want to do the on-camera stuff anyway, so I'm really glad he is. It is going forward. As far as I know, I was just in New Zealand a couple of weeks ago, and I was supposed to tour the set and meet John, and then he had the accident. And he went home 3 days before I arrived. But to their credit, Netflix stopped the production. They're holding on for, they said, 7 to 9 months while he heals. And in many cases they would recast. So to their credit, they're holding off for him, and I'm really glad they are. I think he's a really good choice for it. And as far as I know, Watanabe's-san is involved in it, and I know some of the executive producers and some of the writers, and I think it's going to be amazing. And I'm begging them to let me do anything on it. I haven't heard back yet, so I don't know. But even if it takes flying to New Zealand and just being an extra, I want to be in there somewhere. I want to be one of the old men, You didn't do that, you idiot. Now I'm old enough to actually do that, so. Yeah, man, if they'll let me do anything on that show, I will. I'll wash their cars, so, I'll wash mine if I have to. Thank you for caring. I really appreciate it. All right, come on up. Hi, that poor microphone.
Yeah, I know. So, Tom has been a major influence on my life since I was yay big. And I've enjoyed watching Toonami since watching with my brother, watching DBZ on there. And I was absolutely heartbroken whenever they did shut it down. I was watching Toonami that night when you said farewell. I lost my head.
Yeah.
But I'm really glad you guys are back. But was there ever a time period that you thoroughly, you enjoyed more than others when voicing the role of Tom, or anything along those lines? Or I know it's relatively stayed the same.
That's a great question. I mean, for me, Tom is Tom is Tom. My favorite thing to do is the inspirational speeches, just because I think they've touched so many people. And growing up, I never thought that I was going to do something with my life that would actually touch people in a positive way. And my father was a doctor. I tried to kind of go that route, and I wasn't smart enough. And when I got into voiceover, I thought, oh man, this is great, but what am I really doing to help society? And then I realized that people are actually, these shows make people feel better sometimes. And that's one of those shows. Tom and Toonami in particular has really helped a lot of people through a lot of things and been part of a positive part of people's childhoods. So we're really proud of that, and that's all of our favorite part of the show, is that it really touches people in a positive way. But to be honest, I think my favorite era of Tom is right now. All the stuff that we've gotten to do recently, and to bring Toonami back to the old glory that it was, and to bring all these new shows in, and to see shows like My Hero Academia explode, partially because of its exposure on Toonami, is an amazing thing, that this format is still alive and well. That makes me really happy. And the fact that we get to do new immersion events like The Forge. If you guys haven't seen it yet, check it out. There's another one, another episode coming tomorrow night. Only Toonami on Adult Swim. You have to stay up late, but you can watch The Forge, you can watch those episodes. I think they're on YouTube now. So if you don't have cable or whatever, you can still check them out. But we're still doing these amazing immersion episodes, and Bo Billingsley is in it. Bo is here at the convention, who played Jet in Cowboy Bebop. So we have a little reunion on that. But the people at Toonami have become family to me. It's a lot of the same people that worked on it way back when. And when we were off the air and were coming back on, a lot of them worked after hours on their own dime. A lot of them still do, just to keep the show alive, because the network really wasn't able to support it for quite a while. And I'm really proud to be associated with a group of people who care that much about you guys and your experience in bringing anime to another whole generation. So thank you for watching Toonami. I really appreciate that, dude. All right, come on up. Who's next?
Okay, so speaking on what he said about seeing Tom go, I'm very sad that I have to see Tank go with the zombie trilogy as well. I've been playing zombies ever since it came out, War to War, and Tank was my favorite, and I love to play as him every time.
Yeah, it's been a rough year. But the cutbacks didn't win. We went out on our own terms. Yeah, man, that's been quite a journey.
What would you say is your favorite line from Tank?
It's an old one. Here, I'm gonna move the microphone back so I don't blow out your ears. You got dead flesh on my new boots! Hoorah! And of course, hoorah is always good too. Thank you for that. Calling them maggot addicts, and they're so much fun. All right, come on up. Don't be shy. It's good. Hi.
Hi, it's nice to see you again. I saw you in Biloxi about 3 years ago.
Oh, nice.
It was really nice to see you. It's nice to see you again. But continuing on the pathway of dead characters, so to speak. I'm sorry, but I have to know because my fiance said she would write it if you didn't voice Vincent Valentine in the new remake. Can you forever deny what you're going to do with that, or if they invited you back?
I don't know what they're going to do. I honestly don't. Even if I did, I couldn't tell you. But the truth is, I honestly don't know what they're going to do. I've made it very, very obvious that I'm ready, willing, and able to do that, should they call me. But I don't know what their intention is. They have recast some of the characters already. They say they've got this big plan, and everything will be explained eventually, why they did that. It's never up to us. We're just the voice actors, and we're actually some of the last people to know once the casting is done. Usually they'll contact us about a week before we go in, and that's all the notice we have, and we don't even see the scripts in advance. So if you're looking for real information, I'm not the guy to get it from, but I am ready, willing, and able to do it, and I will take your phone. But thank you. Let them know that you want me to do it, and that's usually the way these things happen. They don't care about our opinions, honestly. It's you guys. It's really the people who are consuming this stuff that make a difference to them. So let them know that you want us, and hopefully they'll bring us back. Thank you. Okay, come on up. Who's next? Yes. Hi.
You've voiced some directly and some indirectly a lot of characters in fighting games. You've been in a lot of the Mortal Kombat stuff like your Sub-Zero, now
Yes.
Baraka, Reptile, or Raichu, even indirectly like your Wolverine, so you were in the Marvel vs. Capcom games and
Yep.
such. How different is it doing your voice recording for fighting games than it would be during a typical voiceover project like an anime or something?
That's a great question. Fighting games hurt. And I don't quite have the healing factor that Wolverine does. Things like Sub-Zero, it's not quite as bad because he doesn't really get loud. He doesn't really need to. You know, it's basically saying things like "stay frosty," you know, that, or "feel the chill." It's quick little bites like that, and even if it does get a little bit exaggerated, it's little short bits. Wolverine just hurts all the way through. You know, he kind of starts here, bub, but then he never stops, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. And at the end, he's, you know, just bits of throat are flying out. It's tough. It's really tough. Anytime you're doing fighting games, you have to be really careful. I'm teaching voiceover now, and that's one of the first things I tell my students is to just, if it starts hurting, stop. And so I limit those sessions now to 2 hours or less, just because I want to keep being able to use this thing. But man, yeah, it's tough. So when you hear Tank Dempsey screaming, I'm screaming that for real. And there's disgusting things flying out of my mouth. I've actually shot some video of myself when I'm doing some of those fighting scenes, and it's gross. There's like piles of spit coming out of my mouth. It's so disgusting. But I always feel like I have to invest myself fully. If I'm not feeling like I've been through that battle at the end of it, I haven't done it right. So by the time I finish like a Wolverine session, it takes me a few days to recuperate. My whole body is engaged. Because every time you hear one of those swipes, I'm physically doing that. To the point where when I was put in the room with Fred Tatasciore, when we were doing Wolverine versus Hulk and some of the stuff for Wolverine and the X-Men, they actually had to separate us. They moved our microphones apart because they thought we were going to knock each other out. Fred's a big guy, and just, Hulk smash, and he's, you know, does this kind of thing, and I'm going back and forth with the claws. And then at the end of the day, my whole chest, my arms, back, everything felt like I had been through that battle. And so, yeah, I mean, the short answer is it hurts, but it's worth it, right? I mean, if it sounds authentic, it's worth it. That's the whole point.
Yeah. Also, one last thing, I feel like this role doesn't get enough like recognition, but like, and I'm not even a huge Naruto fan, but your portrayal of Zabuza.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Zabuza, thank you. Thank you. I miss Haku. Hi, come on up.
So I wanted to ask you about your role with in Korra, because the Avatar franchise has just been like, I watched the first episode of the first series and I've watched it all the way through, like as it came out, and I wanted to know just sort of like if you could give like a short synopsis of what the experience of working with the other people who worked on that show was.
Ooh, that was amazing. I was kind of baffled that I wasn't able to even audition for the first incarnation of Avatar. It just seemed like a natural fit for me because I had been in anime for so long and it did have a little bit of that crossover. So when I had the opportunity to audition for Legend of Korra, I kind of did my fanboy squee again. I was just excited to get to try anything for that. And then when they gave me the character for Amon, my first instinct was to make him big and broad because he was the big bad guy, and they said that he was, you know, taking this stage, and he was almost setting up a cult of his own, so I thought it was this big, broad character. And Andrea Romano, the director of that show, who was a genius, she's one of the greatest directors of all time, said, no, let's tuck him in. He's behind a mask. He doesn't have to be big and bold. It's going to be much creepier and much more effective if you keep him down here. And telling someone that you are going to destroy them with this voice, to me, is even more terrifying than if you're yelling at them. So I thought it was a brilliant choice, and we did get to work as a cast, mostly when we were doing our table reads. Before we would actually go to record, we'd sit around that table with that amazing group of people, and I'd get to see them all work. But when we actually went to record at Nickelodeon, there were only maybe 2 or 3 of us in the booth at a time. It's a very small booth there. So I didn't really get the full experience of working with that cast as much as I would have liked to. But that said, they were just some of the most amazing people and some of the most amazing performances I've ever seen in a cartoon. And the one thing that I really, really loved about that show was the authenticity of the fighting scenes and the attention to detail of history. And I sat at a panel once with two of the Sifus, the guys who taught them how to do the Kung Fu properly. And I was sitting with these guys, and they actually choreographed every one of those scenes live at Nickelodeon and shot it. They shot film of that, and then they animated to it. And I was so fascinated. There were two guys. One guy was really ripped and super fit, and the other guy sitting next to me was this big hulk of a man. He did not look like he was a fit Kung Fu fighter. But the guy, the ripped guy was saying, "This one will kill you." Because everything is super fast and super close, and he did a little demonstration of the Kung Fu moves that he used for the close-up shots, and it was astonishing that they would hire somebody of the caliber of these men to come in and make sure that everything was exactly right for that show. You don't see it on cartoons very often. Just working at Nickelodeon is an amazing experience in itself, but to learn that there's detail behind that to that degree is humbling. The other thing that was interesting about that show was at the end of it, we were recording the very, very last session of it, my last session, and Mike and Brian, the creators of the show, told me then that they were Cowboy Bebop fans, and that was one of the reasons that I got put into the mix at all. And I went, "What? You guys know my show? Oh my God, it's amazing!" But they waited till everything was done before they told me that. So we had another little geek fest. It was an incredible experience. So thank you for watching that. And you've been purified. Okay, come on up. Who's next? I love this cosplay, dude. It's so good.
So, I basically grew up with your voice acting through all of the games that I played. I played a lot of strategy games. I was wondering, I know most actors definitely can't play video games that they do, because a lot of those games are just time sinks. That's like 30, 40, 50, 100 hours.
Yep.
Have you ever played any of the video games that you've done voice acting for, and what's it like when you hear your voice inside like this, or having to kill one of the units that you voice acted?
I'm not a very good gamer. I don't have opposable thumbs. I played back in the day when it was a lot easier, when there were much fewer controls, and I'm really lazy and just learning, it's so hard for me. But I was also one of those guys who would sit for 12 hours at a time, and I just don't have that kind of time to do it. So anytime there's a character, I played a lot of bosses in games, and I would have to have my kids play me to that level so that I could see the characters, otherwise I'd never know what they look like. God of War was one of those things where I played Ares, and I had to have my kids play me to that level because I was dying to see what they did with it. It's just words on paper when we go into the room. There were a few exceptions. Crash Nitro Kart, I got to play Crash Bandicoot in that, and I did play that game. I was able to play that, and that was super fun. And I was also a Crash fan. I mean, just getting to go was awesome for me, since usually I do, big creatures and stuff. So that was super fun for me. There were a few games back then. Pitfall was one of them. I played Pitfall Harry. So this goes back a long ways. I haven't played any of the more recent games, and my kids don't even have time to play games anymore because they're grown up and they have real jobs. So I have to look on YouTube and see what my characters actually look like and sound like. And a lot of times I don't even know what the name of the game is, because when I'm working on it, it's all under code names. Everything is very secretive. We sign NDAs. And several years ago, 2012, Guinness Book of World Records approached me, and they said that I had possibly done the most voices in video games of anyone in the world. And they wanted to give me an award, but I had to prove it. And I said, how can I prove it? I don't even play, I don't know the names of the games. So we had to go through my IMDb. I had to go through my own IMDb with my agent for 4 months and just go down one at a time and say, I don't know if I did this or not. Is there somebody we can call? And we had to verify all these things.
IMDb takes 4 months to scroll through.
It's ridiculous now. Yeah, I had no idea. I just did this for fun in the beginning. But yeah, it's something I'm not very good at. And that's one of the things I love most about coming to cons, is that you guys will come up with these obscure characters that I have no recollection of playing. And I don't see them fleshed out. I don't see even a model sheet of the character. There's some, like Grunt from Mass Effect, they showed me an image of the character, and I kind of knew what he looked like and sounded like, and I can recall that immediately. But there are a lot of characters that you guys bring up to me, and I go, is that me? Are you sure? I don't know. Yeah, but thank you for playing. I really appreciate it. My pleasure. And by the way, all the game reviews that you hear on Toonami, I have not played one of those games. But the guys at Toonami actually do, and they are experts, so we're in good hands. Hi.
I would just like to know how you got involved and how was it working with on Logic's second album, The Incredible True Story.
Oh, nice. Are there any other Logic fans here? Oh, nice. One. Awesome. Well, for the rest of you, here's your homework assignment. Google Logic. He's a hip-hop artist. Most of his audience is a younger audience, and he has tapped into something that is just amazing. He contacted me several years ago when he was 25 years old. He was just about to release his first album, which was called Under Pressure, and he's a huge anime nerd. He loves anime, he loves video games, and he grew up in Maryland in kind of a gangland kind of situation. His brothers and sisters, their friends were gangsters. There were shootings in his house, he was kidnapped, he went through this whole terrible, rough childhood. And one of the few things that got him through was anime and video games. And so a lot of my characters happened to be a voice that brought him some sanity and some joy in that time that was so hard for him, and he remembered that. And when he signed his first record deal with Def Jam Records, he started looking to see who he could have as guests on his album. And they said, well, you can call up whoever you want at this point. You've got a record deal, call up whoever you want. He goes, really? Okay. So he called my agent and said that he had this idea for an album. And she called me and said, there's this 25-year-old rapper who wants you to do something on his album. And I went, why? I'm an old dude, why? I have no idea even, what half of rap is. And she goes, just meet him, he's a really nice kid, and just see what he has to say. I went, all right, fine. And he lived in my neighborhood. He happened to be really close to my house. And we met for a Philly cheesesteak. And the first thing he said to me was, he goes, I start off all of my concerts by talking about peace, love, and positivity. And he goes, don't think that's weird, I actually believe that. And I went, okay, you're a rapper who talks about peace, love, and positivity, you've got my interest. I don't know what you want of me, but the answer is yes, I'm in, because I think the world needs more of that. And so I went to his house, and he told me that he had this whole idea for this album called The Incredible True Story. And he created these two characters that flew around in space, and they were looking for a new planet to settle on because humanity has basically destroyed the Earth. And I thought, all right, you have me. I'm in. I want to do this, yes. And so his producer, Kevin, who's a phenomenal keyboard player, he's played with everybody, came in as Kai, my partner in this album, in this saga. And he wrote this whole story that night, and we did this whole thematic album. It's called The Incredible True Story, and there's a whole bunch of other words that go with that. Super long album title, but it was amazing. It was an incredible journey. And since then, he has become an international superstar. He did an album called Everybody a couple of years ago, and one of the songs on that album was the 1-800 number for the suicide prevention hotline. And he was on the Grammy Awards, and that became one of the biggest songs of the year and one of the biggest songs of all time. And I have some friends who actually work with suicide prevention, and they said that the release of that song actually prevented tens of thousands of deaths. And to work with an artist like that is just an honor and a privilege, and he really lives and breathes what he sings about. So if you haven't checked out Logic, check him out. Even if you don't like rap, it's amazing stuff. And I did 3 music videos with him now too. The latest one is called Icy. So if you get a chance, look up Icy, and I'm playing his record company executive, a guy named Marty Randolph, who tried to get him to sell out. He wanted him to bling up and sell out and do it for the money. And he dressed me up in this ridiculous outfit. So anyway, we had a lot of fun, and he's one of us. Logic is absolutely one of us. So yeah, please check him out. And he's my brother. He's one of my dearest friends in the world. Thank you for that question. I appreciate it. Okay, who's next? Come on up. It's a long way to the microphone.
Took 3 different times.
You did it. You guys can line up here if it makes it easier.
Sorry, I'm vertically challenged.
You're perfect, exactly the way you are.
My question is, so you voiced a lot two of my favorite BioWare games, Dragon Age Origins and Mass Effect.
Oh, nice.
Do you have any favorite quotes or anything like that from said environments? And do you have any stories with, well, BioWare?
Yes, yes. BioWare is a wonderful company to work with. They've got a great sense of humor. They're brilliant. Everybody that worked with them was just phenomenal to work with. From Ogren particularly, there's a few things I can tell you about Ogren. 2 of my favorite lines from him are "Fart me a lullaby," which I said to my kids all the time. They love that one. And then "Misery, vomit, and malt liquor reminds me of home." I love that. And calling people nug humpers, it was ridiculous. One of the fun things about Ogren was that he was drunk most of the time in the game, and the director actually suggested that I get drunk before I record it, and I said, that would be a terrible idea, dude. I'm actually professional, and that would make this very unprofessional. I would not be able to do this, so I didn't get drunk during those sessions, in case you were wondering. But I loved Ogren so much that I started playing D&D about 1.5 years ago, and I based my character, he's a dwarf barbarian, I based him on Ogren. And you will get this, his name, my character's name is Asher Chabs. I don't want to say what I said out loud in the game because there are kids here, but yeah. But that character is based on Ogren because I love him so much. And then with Grunt, we just had such a great time working on that. It was an incredible experience. When I first walked in, they handed me a script that was about that thick. We had about 1,000 lines that we had to crank out in 4 hours. And most of the time I don't like 4-hour sessions because I get really tired. But it was so much fun working on that. The writing was so good, and the story was so engaging, even the little bits of the story that I got to see. It was just such a wonderful experience working on that, and Grunt being a tank baby is super fun, Shepard. So thanks for going on that adventure with me.
And another question. My dad said that Firefly stole the idea of space cowboys from Cowboy Bebop. What's your opinion on that?
I've heard that, and I can't really comment because I haven't seen it. I gotta watch Firefly. It's on my list. I'm sorry, Firefly fans, I haven't watched it yet. I only watched Bebop for the first time like 8 months ago, all the way through. So I'm a bad fan. Thank you. I will keep that in mind when I do watch it though. All right, come on up. Hi.
Hi, I was just wondering what you would say would be like your top 3 characters you've ever voiced.
Ooh. It's hard to choose my favorites. That's revolving, that changes all the time. All my characters hold kind of a special place in my head and my heart. It's usually what I'm working on this week because it means I'm still employed. I mean, that's kind of true because I always tell my students that you have to invest yourself fully in every character that you do. You may want to play Batman, but right now you're Soldier A and you're going to die, so you have to die really, really well. So, I mean, that is a true answer for me. I have a problem with the favorites thing. I will tell you that Spike changed my life in every possible way. Cowboy Bebop was the show that really taught me how to act and changed my life personally too, especially in the Cowboy Bebop. Are you a Cowboy Bebop fan? Well, in the movie, I don't know if you remember in the movie, but there was a scene in a jail cell where he's sitting back to back with Elektra, and they're having this deep, vulnerable conversation. And I just wasn't doing it right. And Mary Elizabeth McGlynn, the director of it, kept saying, you've got to draw from personal experience. This has to hurt. You have to actually go to a painful place right now. And I went, I don't want to do that. This is supposed to be fun. But then I realized if I was willing to let myself go to that vulnerable place and to find my way back out, that's going to change that performance. And it actually changed me as a person. I was taught to tuck everything in. And on that show, it taught me that it's okay to be vulnerable and okay to address all of that stuff that we carry around. It changed me personally and professionally. And the great happy ending to that story is that Mary Elizabeth McGlynn is now my fiance in real life. Well, thank you. Yeah, she played Julia on the show, so Spike got the girl in the end. Yeah, and a couple of the other characters. I mean, there's so many. I can't narrow it down to 3, but Guilmon from Digimon.
I love that character because it was one of the few shows my kids could watch.
He was innocent because I was doing all these scary characters before that. Zephyrelios, of course, from Star Wars. Yeah, that's one of my favorites too. Wolverine, because I was a comic book fan. Do you guys know Gurren Lagann? Yeah. I love that because they didn't want me to do it. They said, no, that's not for you. No, it's not so good. And I went in and I saw, that line is amazing. Can I just say that out loud? They said, okay, go ahead. And I went,
when you screw it in, give it a hard, manly twist.
They went, oh! And the director of that show, Tony Oliver, who's a dear friend of mine, who knew he had to direct me through all of the episodes, that went, oh no. And so I made it my goal to make him squirm as much as I possibly could with every line from that character. So, I mean, every character, I try to find something in it that I love, that makes me laugh or touches me in some way. So thank you for asking that question. It's a hard question to answer. Okay, who's next? Come on up. I love you, brave and hardy souls.
I didn't want to take up 2 questions.
It's okay.
I was wondering, on Instagram and Twitter, and how you teach classes now for future voice actors, you started doing online things, and I was going to do it, but I have a speech impediment, so I thought I'd just be a waste of your time. But would you still teach speech impediment people?
Of course, yeah. Thank you. That's a great question. My voiceover classes, it's online. It is an interactive experience. I do my classes live. There's a live Q&A with it. But everything is archived too. Right now we've got 37 classes in the archives. And my classes actually they begin and end. The primary focus of the class is to feel good in your own skin and to be creative. Honestly, that's what it's about. Voiceover is the vehicle for that. If you decide you want to go into voiceover after the fact, it's still possible. I have friends who have speech impediments also who have overcome certain areas of that and have become very successful as voice actors. It's possible. It might not happen. Who knows? But my personal philosophy is that if I was going to teach something, I want to teach people the things that help me in my life. And I went through 12 years of personal growth. I had some really messed up stuff that happened early on. And at age 40, I decided to clean up my life. And I wanted to just live better and feel better and do better and be better. And I want to share that with people. And I can share that in the context of voiceover. There was a book written years ago called Inner Tennis that used tennis as the format to talk about the inner game, about just creating and moving forward in your life and not letting anything stop you. So that's really the essence of my voiceover classes. You don't have to be a voice actor to be in my voiceover classes. That said, I do bring in some of the best people in the world in my classes now. My first 30 classes were just me doing lectures on the art of voiceover and also building confidence, pushing through fear, picking yourself up after you've fallen. I mean, all the stuff that really a lot of people don't get past, and they can't really enjoy their lives. I want people to really enjoy their lives. We're put here to have some fun. Why not do it while we're here? So I teach all of that, but I also teach all of the most important fundamentals you need if you want to be a voice actor too. It's all in there. But now we have people like Bob Bergen, the voice of Porky Pig, and all of the stuff that he had gone through to get to where he is in his career. We have Charlie Adler, the director of Rugrats, and D. Bradley Baker, who's amazing. Kari Wahlgren was just in my class. Some of the best people in the whole industry are in there. Eliza Jane Schneider, who's a dialect expert. I honestly don't know if voiceover is the right thing for you to pursue. I don't know how severe the impediment is. There are speech therapists that might be able to help you through that. But I know people who've gotten through some really, really heavy things and have succeeded in this business. So don't let that stop you. I would say if there's something that you're interested in, do it. I got into voice acting because I loved voice acting. I didn't know that I'd become a professional at it, or that I'd even become kind of famous for it. I had no idea. I had no expectations of that at all. I just did it because I love to do it. So I would just say, do what you love to do, or do what you're interested in. And if those classes interest you, try one out. Check it out. Go to the website. There's a free 40-minute masterclass. I don't know if you saw that. But it's right on the website. Check that out. And that's different probably from the webinar that you saw. Check that out and see if it's something that feels good to you. And I don't like people to spend money on something unless they feel like it's right for them. That's why there's a lot of free stuff on my website. And one of my big pet peeves is that there are a lot of predators out there that take advantage of people when they're interested in voice acting. That is the #1 question people ask, is how do I get into voice acting? Because people say I have a good voice or whatever, or I can do, impressions. That's why I started doing this class. I didn't want to teach, but I felt like I had to at this point. So yeah, give it a try. And just have fun, man. My pleasure. All right, come on up. Who's next? Oh, by the way, it's BlumVoxStudios.com. And I have cards at my table if you guys are interested.
Hey, what's up?
Nothing, man. How are you?
Good. I was just wondering, when you started Toonami voicing Tom, did you have any idea how influential it would be and how much of a big part it would be of bringing anime to the West?
Oh, no. I had no idea. I didn't even know what I was getting into. When they contacted me from Cartoon Network at the time to take on the role of Tom, I think I was pretty fresh out of Cowboy Bebop. They were fans of Bebop. And they called my agent and they said, well, we're looking for a host for our show. And I said, I don't know how to host. I barely know how to do this. And they said, well, meet us for a beer, we'll buy. And I said, okay, free food, free booze, yeah, I'm in, let's do it. And so I met them and I really liked the guys at the network. And they just told me a little bit about the show. I didn't know about Sonny Strait doing it. I didn't know that my character was gonna take over when his character was eaten. I felt bad about that for years. But I walked in with an open mind and an open heart, and these guys were just the real deal. So from the very beginning, especially when we started doing those inspirational speeches, I thought this was the dream job. I'm never going to find anything better than this, and I still feel that way. I get to record now from home, which is even better. I have 2 home studios, but the one I record Toonami mostly from is just a little closet, so it's easy and it's fun. I've completely forgotten what your question was. Did I answer your question? I did? Okay. Yeah, Toonami is awesome. It's just one of the greatest things in my life, and I'm just so grateful that we get to, did we know that it was going to be as big as it is? No, we had no idea. Back then, anime was really hard to get. For a VHS, which was what most of it was available on at that time. Sometimes a single episode of something was $85. It was ridiculous. And Toonami actually opened this up to a whole new audience worldwide, and it really opened up the American mindset that dubbed anime could actually be pretty good. Some of it isn't, some of it still stinks, but there's a lot of really, really good anime, and I think largely due to the influence of Toonami. So I can't take credit for any of that. I'm just the voice monkey in the suit, but I'm really grateful for it. Thank you for that. Yeah, and so many years later too, I mean, we've been going on this for a really long time. I've actually dressed up in cosplay as Tom a few times now. They built the suit for me, and I wore it to Comic-Con in San Diego and did a full panel in the suit. And for you cosplayers out there, I have mad respect for you. You are amazing, because that hurt. It sucked, and it smelled bad. Oh man, it was just terrible. I was walking along in that costume and pieces of it are flying off. I don't know how you do it. You guys are geniuses. But thank you for watching Toonami. And we're on tomorrow night. If you're Toonami fans, only Toonami on Adult Swim. Thank you. Who's next? Hi, you look lovely.
Thank you. So I'm a lot older than I look. I remember back when we used to like hide our love for anime and stuff, and like now I can see how like kids in high school like started clubs and stuff, and like I see it more open. Like from a behind the scenes perspective, like what have you seen change over the years?
I've seen a lot change in anime over the years. You're right. It's the same with D&D. I think things like Toonami and Critical Role have really made nerddom okay. And I think that's wonderful, because there's so many of us that have this inner nerd that we have had to hide for a really long time. And I remember even in high school, the people that played D&D or would like the kinds of things that we love really had to hide. We were bullied. I was bullied. And so I'm grateful to be part of a community. That's one of the things I love best about conventions, is that we can all talk about the stuff that we love, no matter how nerdy it is, and we're not judged for it. Back then it was really hard to do that. That was one of the other things that I love about Logic, is that we did a panel in New York Comic-Con several years ago, when we were going to release that album that I was talking about earlier. And he's a big nerd, so he wanted to do a panel at Comic-Con. He didn't care what it was about, and this was his way in. And so it was so funny to watch people streaming into the panel, because half of them were diehard hip-hop fans, and the other half were obvious anime or sci-fi fans dressed in cosplay and whatever. And you start seeing these people having these conversations. It's like the anime people are going, you know what, I've always loved hip-hop, but I can't talk to any of my friends about it. And the hip-hop people are saying, you know what, I love anime, but everybody thinks I'm an idiot, so I'm so glad to be here right now. This is amazing. And so just to watch these fandoms converge in the context of a convention is an amazing thing to me. I'm so proud to be part of this community. So that's the biggest thing. I think the acceptance is much broader now. And also acceptance for dubbed anime in particular. The very first convention that I did, dubs were fairly new to the United States back then. I think it was in Sacramento. I went to this convention, and I was there with these guys from this company called Streamline, which was one of the only companies doing dubbed anime at the time. And we actually had people threaten our lives. It was the subbers versus the dubbers, and they said that we were ruining the art form. I said, dude, we're trying to do something so that everybody can watch it. You know, it's not just the otaku who love this. There might be a whole other audience for this. And I had my life threatened. I had to change my phone number. I had to change my email address. I had people waiting outside my house, threatening me. It was crazy back then. Now it's open for everyone. And, you know, there are still people that like things and don't like things, and it'll always be that way. But at least we can have reasonable conversations, and there aren't as many death threats. So that's a good thing. But thank you for sticking it out with us. I appreciate it. You've been there through the hard times then. Yeah, awesome. Hi.
Hi. So I've been wondering, I know I met you at EtsuCon a few years back.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, when are you and Vic going to come out with Real Fans of Genius? More of them.
I don't know. Real Fans of Genius, if you guys don't know, was a takeoff on, was it a Budweiser commercial? Yeah, and we did this whole thing that was about the anime world. And they were funny, they were hilarious, wonderful things. But Vic and I don't see each other very often. We live, I'm not even sure where he's living now. I think he moved back to Texas. Yeah. And we never work together, we never see each other, so it's kind of hard to coordinate that. It's probably more a scheduled thing, and I'm sure he's on other things. He was doing a Star Trek thing for a long time, and I'm traveling a lot more. I'm in a different city almost every week, and I'm teaching, and I'm doing voiceover, so it's hard for me to take on other projects like that. But, you know, if it comes up again, I'd consider doing it again. It was really fun. There were some really fun ones. Yeah, and his Soldier A was one of my favorite things of all time. It was amazing. Who's next? Who's my next victim? Come on up. Hi, I like your sparkles.
Yeah. You've done so many characters, but what's a character you haven't done that you would want to do?
Oh, that's a question I get pretty often. I don't think that way, and I'll tell you why. I think it's dangerous. I think a lot of people that get into voice acting or who are interested in voice acting or acting in general will think about a character that they love and they want to voice. I thought that way in the beginning about characters like Batman, for instance, and I thought that my natural voice print would be good for Bruce Wayne and Batman because I could tip it down a little bit. I didn't really have to work too hard at it. But then I hear people like Kevin Conroy and I went, oh, no, he's my Batman, I'm good, I'm actually okay. The danger of thinking about the stuff that you're not doing is that you hyper-focus on that and you make yourself unavailable to all the other possibilities that are out there. So I always tell my students, if you want to do something like that, cool, put that in the back of your mind and move on and do everything else that you can. And who knows, the way the world works, the way the universe works, it tends to work in a full circle anyway. Just tucking that in the back of my mind, I ended up playing Lego Batman. I was the original Lego Batman. I didn't have any words, I just went, oh. But I got to go out and buy the action figure and say, I did this. That was all I really cared about. And I've gotten to play Batman a couple times in other incarnations, and that was good enough for me, it was fine. The only exception that I've ever heard regarding focusing on a particular character is Bob Bergen wanting to play Porky Pig from the time he was 8 years old. And now he has been the voice of Porky Pig for years and years and years and years. But he was able to let go of that enough after meeting Mel Blanc, the original voice of Porky Pig, and Mel told him, you know what, the job's already taken, and maybe move on and, you know, learn about some other things and do other stuff. And he did, and he made a fantastic career for himself. And then who knew? It circled back, Mel passed, he got to audition for it, and he got to play Porky Pig. But he didn't limit himself by that. So that's just the one caution I would put out there, and maybe that wasn't even involved in your question, but that's the reason I don't think about characters that I haven't voiced. I audition usually about 30 to 50 times a week, and maybe book one of those. So I'm concentrating on what's next, not what I haven't gotten necessarily. And when I do that audition, I'm grateful for that audition and I let it go. And then if I book it, great. If not, chances are one of my friends booked it, and I celebrate them. So we had a whole class, I was talking before about the other things that I discussed in my voiceover classes. We had a whole class on just celebrating your colleagues getting to work, even if it's something that you really, really, really want. It's okay to really, really, really want something, but just don't hyper-focus on that. But thank you for that question. It's a powerful one. Okay, who's up next? Anybody? Don't make me come down there. Okay, good. It's okay.
So Spike was my first anime crush. I'm sure a lot of other girls out here feel the same way. I have the swordfish tattooed on my back.
Oh, nice.
Do you have any anime crushes?
I kind of liked Fei Fei. Yeah, Fei Fei was my first anime crush, I think. No, there were a few actually. There was a show that we did called Big O. And a character in a... Go ahead, that's cool. Yeah, Big O, woo, showtime. There was a character who actually was kind of like my robotic assistant named Dorothy. I kind of had a little crush on Dorothy. Yeah, which was weird, but I did. Leah Sargent played her, and I loved what she did with that character. I thought that was amazing. Those were probably my first two anime crushes. I've got a lot of anime crushes. And of course, Julia from Cowboy Bebop, too, who is now my real life crush. I get to live with her, it's amazing. Yeah, that's what a fun question. I don't know if anybody's ever asked me that before. Thank you for that. Okay, who's next? How are we doing on time? We're okay? Yeah, we're getting close. All right.
Going back to what you said you don't remember all the characters that you played. I remember I played The Last of Us. I went into the multiplayer, and then next thing you know, I hear you like saying, "Stay frosty" or something like that. I go, hold up. Wait a minute, was that? And I kind of replayed it back, and I was like, oh, that's him. And then I went into the story mode, and I hear you like in the background, just like, great, something like that. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna get all my games, play them in, try to see if you can do something. Then I pulled up the list of what you played, and I was like, that's a lot. That's a lot.
You'll never get anything else done.
No.
No, I play a lot of cannon fodder. That game particularly, I played a lot of guys who died really fast.
Very fast.
Yeah, but I like that too. You know, somebody was asking what the favorite characters are. In that moment, my favorite character was, you know, soldier number 3, who has a 30-second lifespan. Because, you know, I was going to make him die as well as I could in that moment. But thank you for that. Yeah, I love that. It's fun. And there's no commitment when a character has that short of lifespan. You just jump in and you die. On to the next thing. It's great.
Speaking of that, I'm curious, have you ever tried doing a Wilhelm scream?
Yes, I do that all the time, actually. I don't know if I can do it today because my throat's a little rough. Something like that. That's a little rough. But I've worked a lot on the Star Wars movies, on Rogue One and Solo, and maybe another one. Yes, you know that, great. But in those, I usually try to slip in a few Wilhelm screams. They have their own, which they've used a lot, and they try to use them sparingly. But just as sort of a joke, I always try to throw those in. So if you listen really closely, there's some really bad versions of them on the screen in Solo and Rogue One particularly. And also in Shazam. I was in Shazam. Have you guys seen Shazam? That was two of the 7 deadly sins, and then I did like some background stuff. And in a couple of the background things, I threw a couple of those in there too. And I'm not sure if they stuck to final picture or not, but yeah, I love those. It's super fun. Okay, we've got time for just a few more, I think. Is anybody keeping time? I don't know. There's usually a monitor that comes in and yells at me. Okay, all right, good.
I know you mentioned how you said you've always wanted to play Batman, but your character, but yet King Clove, your character is Green Lantern, and like in Injustice 2,
yes.
It ends with Kevin Conroy, and that one, was you in the same room with him working on that scene, or was those voice lines recorded separately?
I've never gotten to work in the same room as Kevin. He's based in New York, I think, and I think he records all the stuff there. We always go in by ourselves. So even with Killer Croc, all those characters that we played for those games, it was all by ourselves. We had to do it by ourselves.
I know you mentioned you've always wanted to play that character, but when you brought Big O a minute ago, Roger Smith is kind of like Bruce Wayne in many ways.
Yeah.
How did they, when you were presented with that character when you voiced for Big O, how did they describe how to approach that character to you?
Yeah, when they first told me about Big O, they said this is basically Batman with giant robots. And I went, okay, yeah, that sounds cool. It really is very much like that. So they wanted him very understated. You know, he's the negotiator. He spoke very quietly. He didn't really have to yell except when he said, showtime! You know, that's really the only time he really yelled, or if there was something that really required yelling, like Batman. So, you know, I didn't think about it too much at the time, but I thought that was the closest I'd ever get to playing Batman, honestly. Thank you, and thanks for watching that. I still don't understand what that show was about. You know, the tomatoes in the end, I don't know. So I think we probably have time for maybe one more. Anybody else got one? Burning question? Come on up.
There was a couple I had in mind. There was, let's see, when you started getting into voice acting, was there a point, say for me when I first learned Mark Hamill was Joker, which when I first heard about that, and I was like, wait, the same person as Luke Skywalker is the Joker? That blew my mind. And then when I started studying and practicing, then I started noticing that I'm noticing other actors. And when I played Middle-earth Shuttle War, there was a Ghost Colin Brimbor, and then I played God of War, and I found out Mimir was the same. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm recognizing these voices. At what point did you start recognizing actors when they do different voices?
That's a great question. I'm not very good at that. Some people, that is their superpower. I can be in the same room with people who have been voicing stuff, and I think I probably knew, and I just forget, because I don't really care about celebrity as much as I used to. But I'm always the idiot in the room who doesn't know who anybody is. You know, sometimes I'm standing next to somebody who's super famous in the room, and everybody's freaking out, and I go, I don't know, is he nice? If he's nice and he can do the job, cool. There are a few that I've followed. Frank Welker is one of them. Frank Welker was probably the first one that I noticed. Beyond Mel Blanc, of course, because Mel did everything back then. But Frank Welker did the voices of most of the animals from Disney movies. Flit from Pocahontas and Cave of Wonders from Aladdin. He was the voice of Free Willy. He did the whale sounds in Free Willy. Crazy. So I was just fascinated by him because he could do creature voices and animal voices. And so I started kind of following his career and noticing when he would do stuff, although it was really hard to pick it out because he's so versatile. D. Bradley Baker is another one who does amazing creature voices. I started following his stuff. And Mark, of course, Mark Hamill was one of the ones that I noticed right away because I was a big Star Wars fan, and when he did the Joker, it just blew my mind. It blew my mind even more that he was a nice person because he's so famous. But Mark is down to earth, and he's really good as a voice actor. There are a lot of on-camera celebrities that come in, and they aren't so good at it. they get hired because they're so famous. And Mark is one of those guys who comes in and he works really hard. And he's just one of us. He works for the same rate and he works really hard, and he's really, really good at what he does. So that would probably be about the main group that I really notice. I'm starting to pick it up on other people now, but it's really, I'm not very good at that. I don't even recognize my own voice half the time. I'm terrible at that. In Cowboy Bebop, I did a couple like little side characters, and I went, "Oh, that was me. I don't remember doing it. That's amazing." Yeah.
That was another probably quick one. Was like when playing with Mortal Kombat 11 and such during the cutscenes. I imagine the actual gameplay was not you motion capture, but during cutscenes, did you also motion capture for that, or was that someone else and you just supplied the voice?
No, I didn't motion capture any of that. Yeah, they did some facial capture. I don't remember if it was for that game or Injustice, but they did a thing where they put some dots on my face, and they did have the whole head cam and the cameras and stuff. I've done facial capture quite a few times, but motion capture, I'm too lazy. Because you got to dress up in the suit with all the dots, and you got to memorize lines, and there's blocking, and I'm just too lazy to do that. There are other people who really, really enjoy it. It's just not my thing. But thank you for playing. I appreciate it. I think that's all the time I have, you guys. I'm going to be here all weekend, so please come by and see me. And tomorrow we are doing a Bebop panel, and I am so excited because this is a reunion for us as much as it is for you. So. Thank you guys for inviting me to your wonderful town. I love you all. Thank you so much. I'll see you soon.